If your elementary-aged kid decided to, one day they get up from bed and they drink alcohol, they cut their own hair, the day before school photos, and they push another kid out of the chair and say, "Get out, that's my chair," and then the principal calls you and you have to deal with it, what do you do? As the parent, the caretaker, the educator, what do you do? So, I mean, this situation, let's see, this is the same child we're talking about. This situation sounds like a nightmare. None of us want this on our hands. We all got bigger. We want to be taken care of. And we don't want this child to be harmed by their own misbehavior. So we see it as unacceptable. However, here's the thing. I'm not saying ignore it, because bad behavior always has to be corrected in a way that is positive and constructive for that kid. But on the other hand, and it is another hand, because this hand is very real. Neglect is a real thing, is a signal of future independence. Defiance is a way to be assertive, something that's very lacking in this world. We want our kids to grow up self-assured, do we not? So that's what we're going to dive into in a free online event happening on March 2nd, Sunday, March 2nd. We're going to be talking about navigating reality versus expectations, having expectations. When it comes to caregiving, being a parent, being an educator, etc. It's open to the public, but it is limited seating, only letting like 20 or 30 people in the Zoom. I'm Dominique. I'm an educator since 2010, entrepreneur since 2020. I've spent years working with thousands of learners and probably hundreds of caregivers directly, and helping everyone to bridge the gap between expectations, like here's what we want to happen, and the reality, which is this is what is going to happen, this is what is happening. In this video, I want to talk about why expectations around obedience and good behavior versus bad behavior is a little bit in conflict with the way that we actually want our kids to grow up. So that example that I shared at the beginning was a true story. And I used it because I don't know her whole life. In fact, I don't even know an hour of it. But Karen Brady, who was interviewed by Stephen Bartlett for the Diary of a CEO podcast a year or two or whatever ago, all you know about her in the beginning of the episode is that she's this multimillionaire boss woman. I think she's 52 now. So, you know, she hasn't even come close to living her whole life. And she's already a mega success in business and in personal life. And she shares how, as a child, she did all these bad things. She cut her own hair. She pushed the other kid out of the seat. She drank alcohol. She could have gotten alcohol poisoning for all I know she did. She was 4. That's an age on one hand. If this was your child, would you be pissed? Would you be angry? Would you be embarrassed? Would you be wondering what on earth you did wrong? These are all like completely normal responses, completely valid responses. But on the other hand, we're missing the response that says, wow, my kid can stand up for themselves. Wow, my kid knows what they want and will do whatever they have to make sure they get it. My kid will bend the rules for their own sake. Which is a pro and a con. I want to recognize that. But my point is that we very often overlook the part of it that is a pro, that is helpful. The disconnect, let's call it that. The disconnect is that we say we want kids to grow up to be strong and capable and independent. But at the same time, like, you have to obey all the time. You have to follow the rules and don't question them. You have to never talk back. You have to never be disrespectful, even when someone else is disrespectful, which happens. When kids conform to this, then they end up losing that piece of themselves that normally they would be training. Someone once described youth justice as allowing children to have the space to make mistakes. And I really like that definition. Mistakes are necessary. Like entrepreneurs like Karen Brady talk about, or very successful professionals like Karen Brady talk about failure and how it's so important for success. And yet with our kids, we have a zero tolerance policy. The other thing I want to bring up is that there are neurological differences, right? So if you're neurodivergent, it makes it even more difficult to meet those expectations, those same expectations. Autism, pathological demand avoidance, pervasive demand for autonomy, cerebral palsy, Down syndrome, Tourette's, ADHD, like the list goes on. To meet expectations can be challenging.